Maybe you've seen this painting before. It's one of those images that lodges itself in your brain and refuses to leave, like a song stuck on repeat. There's something magnetic about it, something that pulls you in and whispers, "There's more to this story." And trust me, there is. This is The Fallen Angel by Alexandre Cabanel. It's a painting drenched in drama, rebellion, and heartbreak. And oh, did I mention it completely flopped when it was first unveiled? How does a painting this stunning, this deeply emotional, end up being such a disaster for its creator? As the saying goes, the devil's in the details. So, let's take a closer look at this masterpiece, uncover its hidden layers, and figure out why Cabanel painted one of art history's most beautiful bad boys. Stick around, because by the end of this video, you might just find yourself relating to Lucifer in ways you never expected. Take a moment to soak it in. What we see is a marble-like figure perched tensely on a rocky outcrop. Above him, angels soar joyfully, seemingly celebrating his fall. Meanwhile, our protagonist, Lucifer, sits with his head bowed, his wings drooping, and his expression a mix of rage, shame, and maybe just a hint of vengeance. You almost feel bad for him, don't you? He's like a kid who just got kicked out of the coolest party in heaven and now has to sit outside, sulking. Oh, and let's not ignore the fact that he's sitting bare-bottomed on a rock. That can't be comfortable. But let's get serious. Who is this angelic yet troubled figure? If you haven't guessed yet, this is Lucifer, the OG bad boy of the Bible. Welcome to his origin story. Before we dive deeper into Lucifer's woes, let's talk about the man who painted him. Alexandre Cabanel wasn't just talented, he was a prodigy. At 22, he won the prestigious Prix de Rome, an award that gave young artists a chance to study in Italy. That's like winning an all-expenses-paid trip to Hogwarts, but for painters. Cabanel was the darling of the Paris art scene. Critics loved him, audiences adored him, and his technique was flawless. Just look at this self-portrait he painted at 13. It's the kind of work that makes you question your own life choices. But even golden boys hit rough patches. In 1846, Cabanel submitted a painting called Orestes to the Paris Salon. The judges hated it, calling it oversized and inept. The criticism was so brutal it sent Cabanel into a creative crisis. Have you ever worked so hard on something only to have it completely backfire? Let me know in the comments. I promise, no judgment. So, how does an artist rebuild after a setback like that? For Cabanel, the answer was clear: take a risk. He decided to paint The Fallen Angel, a depiction of Lucifer's fall from grace. But Cabanel didn't just paint a villain. He gave us a character filled with complexity, emotion, and, yes, beauty. In Christian tradition, Lucifer was God's most beautiful angel, a being so perfect that he became enamored with his own splendor. That pride led to rebellion, and rebellion led to a swift eviction from heaven. Cabanel captures that moment of rejection and shame, freezing it in time. Look at Lucifer's body language. His muscles are tense, as though he's ready to take flight again, but his drooping wings and downcast eyes tell a different story. He's defeated, but not destroyed. Let's unpack some of the fascinating details in this painting. 1. The wings. Lucifer's feathers shift from light to dark, mirroring his transformation from angelic to fallen. It's as if his purity is literally fading away. 2. The expression. His face is a masterpiece in itself. The tear streaking down his cheek, the clenched jaw, the burning eyes, it's a cocktail of emotions, anger, shame, and maybe even a hint of regret. 3. The angels. Above. These aren't just background figures. Their joyful flight contrasts sharply with Lucifer's brooding presence, emphasizing the isolation of his fall. Here's where it gets interesting. Cabanel doesn't paint Lucifer as a monster. Far from it. He's beautiful, relatable, and even a little tragic. In fact, he almost seems human. Why do we feel sympathy for him? Maybe it's because we've all been there. Who hasn't felt misunderstood or cast aside at some point? Lucifer's story is universal, a cautionary tale about pride, but also a reminder that failure is part of the human experience. Do you see Lucifer as a villain, a hero, or something in between? Let me know your thoughts. Cabanel didn't just dream this up on his own. His depiction of Lucifer draws heavily from John Milton's Paradise Lost. The epic poem describes Lucifer as a complex character, cunning and dangerous, but also deeply flawed and even pitiable. Milton wrote, "Cruel his eye, but casts signs of remorse." Cabanel took that duality and ran with it, giving us a Lucifer who is as beautiful as he is broken. Now, you'd think a painting this stunning would be an instant hit, right? A masterpiece like this. Surely it would blow everyone away at the Paris Salon and solidify Cabanel's reputation as an artistic genius. Wrong. When Cabanel submitted The Fallen Angel to the Salon in 1847, the judges were less than impressed. Actually, scratch that. They were downright dismissive. They criticized the pose, calling it awkward and unnatural. They picked apart the execution, saying it lacked the precision expected of academic art. And let's not forget the subject matter. Painting Lucifer, a figure associated with sin and rebellion, was seen as risky at best and downright inappropriate at worst. You have to remember, this was the 19th century. The art world was ruled by strict conventions. Biblical subjects? Sure, those were fine, but only if they aligned with moral and religious ideals. Painting the devil, no matter how angelic or sympathetic he looked, was seen as crossing the line. To the academic establishment, The Fallen Angel wasn't just a painting. It was a challenge to their values. Cabanel was devastated. After all, this wasn't just a painting for him. It was deeply personal. He poured his soul into this work, creating something raw, emotional, and human. So when the judges dismissed it, he later lamented, "That's my reward for all the trouble I gave myself not to submit an average piece of work." Can you imagine working so hard on something only for it to be torn apart? But here's what makes this story even more fascinating. The Fallen Angel wasn't just a painting of Lucifer. It was a reflection of Cabanel himself. At the time, Cabanel was struggling with intense feelings of loneliness, self-doubt, and the crushing pressure to meet impossibly high standards. In letters to his close friend Alfred Bruyas, Cabanel described his life in Rome as joyless and full of sorrow. He admitted to burning letters he'd written because they were too full of despair to send. It's heartbreaking to think that an artist as talented as Cabanel felt so isolated and unfulfilled. Lucifer's fall wasn't just a metaphor in this painting. It was Cabanel's own experience, channeled into art. He too was a golden figure who had faced rejection, cast down by an unforgiving system. His portrayal of Lucifer's anger, shame, and defiance wasn't just artistic, it was autobiographical. Yet, despite the failure of The Fallen Angel, Cabanel didn't give up. 3 years later, he submitted The Death of Moses to the Salon, and this time the judges were impressed. The painting was a success, earning him accolades and putting him back on the path to artistic greatness. Cabanel went on to become one of the most celebrated academic painters of his era, teaching and mentoring future generations of artists. Among his later works, The Birth of Venus stands out as a crowning achievement. Created in 1863, it became the epitome of academic art, celebrated for its beauty and technical brilliance. But as much as The Birth of Venus dazzles, it doesn't quite capture the raw emotional depth of The Fallen Angel. There's something about The Fallen Angel that lingers. It's more than just a painting. It's a conversation. Cabanel invites us to see Lucifer not just as a villain, but as a complex, relatable figure. Through his tears and clenched fists, we glimpse the universal struggle of pride, failure, and the desire for redemption. So, what's your take on The Fallen Angel? Do you see Lucifer as a tragic hero, a misunderstood rebel, or something else entirely? And why do you think Cabanel chose to paint him with such humanity and vulnerability? Was he trying to show us Lucifer's manipulative charm, or was he simply holding up a mirror to his own struggles? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Let's make this a conversation. What details did you notice in the painting? Do you think it deserved the harsh criticism it received? And if there's another painting or artist you'd like me to cover, let me know. I'm always up for a deep dive, whether it's drama, beauty, or just plain weirdness. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon for more explorations into the fascinating world of art history. Your engagement helps bring these stories to life, and I truly appreciate it. Until next time, keep exploring the stories behind the canvas, because art always has more to say than meets the eye.